Alright, welcome back everybody to another Traveling Goof video. So we're back fresh from the West Coast Melee, the NAOL's OverPower event in Seattle this September. And it was incredible. We had about 16 players show up, but we had a huge variety of old players, new players, a lot of excitement, a lot of good friends, and a lot of OverPower. Not only that, we had a charity raffle for the Miller family. Anyway, so this video we're going to talk about a couple different things. I know everyone's excited to hear some of the decks from the Melee, so I'm going to share the top 4 decks. Don't worry, there's not going to be any spoilers. I'll let the actual deck creators talk about that instead. I'm going to go over my deck. I'm going to show the deck list that I made and talk about how that performed. I'm also going to talk a little bit about home base rules, because that was a new thing for me at this tournament, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are still a little bit nervous about committing into Legacy and the NAOL, because home bases are kind of the next step, the next evolution past the LRG games. And then I'll finish with a little bit of some of the semantics and the thoughts about the tournament itself. But it was an incredible time, and let's get into it. All right, the 4th place deck was played by Andrew Taylor. And he ran Zeus, Morgan, Mojo with 3-stat Magneto in reserve, Dracula's Armory, and the Morlock Tunnels for his home base. My first match was actually against him, and I got my first loss there, not surprisingly. I wish we'd moved and caught this one on camera, since no one used the camera for the first match, because it was a nail biter that lasted all the way into the last hand. He definitely had the advantage most of the game, and obviously the skill and experience factor, but my deck was surprisingly able to hold off Zeus for a lot of rounds. I don't think he even landed a second Thunderbolt until that last hand was called, so I felt pretty good for sticking it out that long against one of the top players in the game. The number 3 deck, played by Charlie, had Jubilee, Hades, X-Babies with White Queen in reserve, and Marvel Universe and Hell's Kitchen as his home base. I didn't have the pleasure of playing against Charlie, but if you made it onto the stream, that's really a deck to see. And maybe do a double take when I first saw it, but I'll let him or the stream show you what I'm talking about. All right, deck number 2 was Letitia, and she played Wonder Woman, Zealot, Joan, Silver Sable, with 221B Baker Street and Outback as her home base. And wow, Letitia and I both played our first OP tournaments at the Seattle Regional in July this year, and it was awesome to see a new player make it this deep into the competition. She played John Lewis's Ohio Championship deck, but proved her skills by making all the right plays time and time again, even serving Charlie his only loss of the entire night. And the game-winning deck was Thomas Keene's Joan of Arc, Invisible Woman, Scarlet Witch with Cthulhu in reserve, Omniverse, and Onslaught Citadel. I got to face this deck twice, and I took the loss both times. The first match is on stream, but a very early character loss, followed by drawing nearly all of that lost character's playset over the next 2 hands, led to a real quick defeat for me. The second time was far closer. One misplay of mine where I threw a teamwork follow-up from the wrong character cost me the chance of spoiling Thomas's big day. That decision meant I could only load Scarlet Witch with 19 points after getting through her defenses, and probably led me to losing the game. So overall, I thought this was a really fun tournament. There was a whole lot of variety. Thomas's deck had a Brute Force 8 with a whole bunch of Intellect as a backup stat. The number 2 deck was all combat. Then the 3rd deck had pretty much mixed stats all over the board, and then number 4 was Energy. So Energy had a strong presence, but it felt so much more like there was a mixed bag of decks out there in Seattle. And another cool point was that 4 different modern characters made the top 4, and far more than that made it into the top 8. So very cool results. Great job, Thomas. Great job, Letitia. Great job, Charlie and Andrew. And thanks, Doug, for putting it all together. Let's talk about my deck. Now, I was extremely proud of how this played out. So I built a ton of different versions and got some great advice from Adam But the final version I only put together Thursday night before the tournament, and I hadn't play tested any of the different combinations whatsoever. So game 1 on tournament day was the very first time not only playing with this deck, but playing with a home base ever. So I had no idea how the whole day was going to perform. But it did great. I went 3-2 in regulation and was paired up against the winning deck in the elimination rounds. So all 3 of my losses throughout the night came from Andrew, who finished 4th, and Thomas, who won it all. And 2 of those games were really hard-fought losses. I was very proud of the deck. All right, and without any further ado, here's my deck. Played John Carter of Mars, the Angry Mob Modern Age, Serpent Society, and Anubis in reserve, with Barsoom as my location and ship as my home base. So I built the entire deck on Barsoom, and I went through probably half a dozen or more different deck ideas and combinations. So the original one had Bishop in it, but I got told that his Energy of Void doesn't actually trigger Barsoom because it's defensive, and if you take a look at the small fine print, it says offensive, non-numerical. So Bishop was out, and the energy themed version that I was trying to make just did not fit together well. I ended up with John Carter and the strength bump because it had a whole bunch of strong attacks, dual team defense, negate, and then the chance of between 1 and 3 8s. So kind of all the staples. So the theme of the deck was to try and bump stats up so that I can fetch a power card of my choosing. With that in mind, I had 2 of John Carter's 8 brute force boosts. I also ran 2 of his avoid 1 attacks. I ran a single one of his lockouts from combat and brute force. I also ran 2 any power 8s and his 8 multi. So had a lot of venture going from John Carter. Continuing that, I kept the damage with Angry Mob because I ran their 7 that had a really cool lockout function, which actually helped me out on a couple of rounds. I ran 2 of their regular 7s. I ran their 4 additional, the 2 multi, which got through their shields, and then ran some of their secrets. So this one is actually really cool. You have to play it, and you essentially lose the turn for playing this card that doesn't get you too much, but for the remainder of the game until they discard 2 cards or negate it, I get to see their hand. So there's a couple of trick decks that I faced, or a trick deck that I faced, and a Cadillac that I faced, that I got to see their entire hand and forecast out all their hits and knew what I needed to keep to defend. So it helped me out a ton. And then finally, Serpent Society had 3 team avoids, 2 negates, and then I ran their 7 and a lockout. So paired with the Angry Mobs, there's a lot of 7s and thrown out and a lot of disruption to their characters. Now Anubis, of course, I played Book of the Dead, so that when someone's KO'd, I get to play their specials. Hopefully it's John Carter since he draws some hate. I also brought his Wing of the Heart out, but if I draw another low gravity, I have to play that with Anubis. Okay, so those were my specials. I ran 2 allies, 3 teamworks, 20 power cards with 4 7s, which I felt pretty comfortable with because if I'm fetching at all during the game, I get to pull one of those out potentially and reduce that duplication factor. I was playing the Fatal Attractions mission set with a single event, which was the no energy icons. So this worked out pretty stupendously, certainly against that Zeus deck that Andrew was playing. For my home base, I played Ship. Now this one was really cool because it had a whole bunch of characters that I grew up playing. So it felt really awesome to have Jean Grey in there, throw out some of her specials. Apocalypse to throw out his enhanced strength. Now this card was imperative to have in my deck because it was one of the main reasons why I actually chose having ship. So Apocalypse is one of only 3 characters in the entire home base pool that let me boost stats. So this AY card came from Apocalypse. Thor has one with Avengers Mansion and the 8 energy, and then Hydra has a dual 7 boost on Helicarrier. So that 7 boost wasn't going to help me out too much because so many of my characters already had a 7 out there, but having this nice 8 helped out a ton, especially if I can get that on Serpent Society. But there was times I got that onto Anubis as well. I also ran 3 Icemans, 2 Cyclopses, 2 Beasts for that negate, of course, and then I had the Hades activator. But I almost forgot to include one of these, and they're incredibly important because you can just pull anything from the entire stack of your home base. Oh, finally, I also had a single Angel as well, and found out that I did not really like playing with only a single option to pull from. Okay, now that you guys have seen the deck, this thing turned out really well. I came in 6th place overall out of the 16 players. But one of the things that I wanted to figure out before getting to this tournament was how home bases work. And there's a whole bunch of pieces of information out there, but not the entire picture. So let's talk about some of the rules. So hopefully that anyone else who's thinking about attending a Legacy event but is a little bit daunted by the thought of playing with home bases, I can clear that up for you. So what are home bases and how do they actually work? So there are a couple rules for actually building the home base. The first is for all these 6 characters that are shown, you can only have a single one per deck. So if I chose this Beast 9, I wouldn't be able to include Jean Grey's 9 as well, because you're only allowed the 1. You also can't have duplicate character codes. So Jean Grey's got her 6 AG, which is the Full of Void, so I wouldn't be able to include Iceman's Full of Void. You can only pick 1 to include. So if these 3 cards are going to be my home base, I would take them, I would tuck them underneath the home base, and these cards would get shuffled into my deck. So that when I drew my hand for the next round, my 8 cards, I have to go on like usual, discarding a duplicate. But then from here, if someone was to attack me, say with this 4 to Angry Mob, I can choose to play this Jean Grey special. I would play it, and I would look through my home base to find one of the Jean Grey cards that I have. Now obviously this can't be used as a defense, so instead I'd be able to pull out this avoid 1 attack and then play that, both of them then going to the dead pile. Alternatively, if I drew another Jean Grey on a different hand, I'd be able to play that to fetch another one of her cards and then attack the opponent. So you have to choose the character, so I can say that I'm pulling this 4 from Jean Grey and then Serpent Society is attacking whoever I was going to attack. But you do have to specify who that attack is coming from. Another thing to note is that any activator essentially has the first symbol in on it. So you can't use it to follow up anything, it's got to be the first action of your turn. Now I mentioned it was really important to pull Hades because if you have these activators in your deck and you want to play a Hades, you can pick any card to play. It doesn't have to be one of his specials. Yeah, it's just like the Beyonder does here. So I can use this Hades to pull the Beast 9 and then attack through Angry Mob towards someone else that way. One thing that is important to note is that you're able to look through your home base stack at any time. So if you think you want to play a Jean Grey card for that avoid or for that attack, and you're not sure exactly what the text is, you don't have to memorize it. Luckily, you just take a look at it, see what you have there, and then make your decision whether or not you want to play the card. So hopefully that clears up a few different rules, namely that you can only have the 1 per deck, single 1 per deck in the entire stat, of these different characters. You can't have any duplicate character codes, whether that is having 2 Jean Grey cards that both have AG, or Jean Grey and say Iceman, similar AG. You can only keep 1 card from any code. And then whenever anything gets played, it doesn't go into the normal dead pile, it goes into the defeated character pile. So I had a blast playing in this tournament. We had 40-minute regulation rounds, and that actually didn't feel that quick because we had 10 minutes for a last hand after the end of regulation to finish up. I think 2 of my games went on that long, and most of the other ones got within 5 minutes or so of the end of regulation. So 40 minutes seemed like the right amount of time. Nominally, the tournament was going to start at noon. I think we ended up starting at around 1:30 or so due to a couple of people arriving late. And then we had some raffle stuff to figure out, and then there were some people that are having problems getting onto the Cardio website. But even with that late start, we were able to have the finals completed by about 10 p.m. So not that long of a tournament comparatively. I liked how it was about 10 hours and we were done and able to get home in a normal time. And an incredible time up in Seattle. Thanks to Doug Taylor for making it all happen and everyone else who's involved with that. And I can't wait to see the OverPower gang again at the Philly LRG Regional later this year. So from one of the newest members of the NAOL Top 8 Tournament Club, venture well.